on episode 744 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. We talk about the two futures of your health and fitness. Welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, the largest and longest running health and fitness podcast dedicated to people over 40. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or improve your health and age better, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Coach Allan, an online health and fitness coach and author of The Wellness Roadmap. Each week, we dive into practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and fitness. If you're ready to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter your age, this podcast is the perfect place to start. Let's get you on the path to a healthier, fitter, and more energetic version of yourself. I hope you'll join us each week, and together we can unlock your full potential. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. I hope you're doing well. I'm your host, Coach Allan. Really glad you're here. We're going to have another really good episode this week. Similar topic, but a little bit more positive than last week. I've had a good week. I'm back lifting, pretty serious again, which is good. You know, some of that soreness, the things that I haven't felt maybe in a little while because I've been taking a break with my health issues. But I'm back there. I got back on the volleyball court, feeling pretty good about that. So really, yeah, I'm where I need to be physically. At this point, I've got some follow-ups scheduled and we'll get those dealt with. But in general, things are looking pretty good. We're hitting a low season here in Bocas. Our busy season for Bocas del Toro typically runs from Christmas until Easter. We ran a little longer this year, a couple weeks longer, but things are tailing off really nice as we go into the end of basically our busy season. And then Tammy and I are going to take the month of May off, head up to the States and visit a grandbaby and our kids. Yeah, them too. But we're ready to take a break, get up and be moving around. So May will be a pretty exciting month for us, and I'm looking forward to the time off and time to reconnect with family. So if you listened to last week's episode, then you should kind of have a picture in your head about how bad things can get with your health and fitness if you choose to do nothing. And I'm going to say, yes, you may have an excuse, but it's still a choice. There is something you can do and should be doing. And if you're not doing it, you're headed down a dark path. Now, I promise this week we're going to shift to more of a positive frame, and I'm going to stand by that. I said it before, and I'll say it again. We are going to be more positive, but I'm going to ask you this question to kind of start this episode off. I entitled the episode Two Futures, and it's a real truth of, we talked about one of those futures last week, the dark one, the one you really don't want for yourself. But let me ask you this. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you want? I mean, really want? And yes, today, as we go through this episode, I really want you thinking and dreaming big. What are the things that you need and want in your life that are really important to you? And what is that going to mean to you when you have that? Okay, so think no failure. What would I try to do? What would I want to be? And we're going to go there, okay? Now, you know me. I'm not just going to be here and telling you these are the things you have to do or should do. I'm not that prescriptive. We all have our own path. We all have our own wants and needs. But I do want you to explore your future. And to do that, I'm going to set a little bit of structure to that. And of course, there's going to be some stories involved, or at least, some stories involved. Okay, now I'm going to take you back to when I was in my teens and 20s. You may have heard this before, but it's just bear with me. We're going to go through this. When I was in my teens and 20s, I was really fit. Pretty much in high school, I played just about every sport at some level or another. I may not have been on the basketball team. I played some basketball with the church league, played softball, played baseball, played football, was on the track team. Not much golf. No, I wasn't. I wasn't into golf back then. But I pretty much, if there was a sport that felt like a sport, I was going to give it a shot. And then I took that athleticism that I had developed, and then I was going to go into the Army. I joined the U.S. Army. I was 20, and I went in as an infantry soldier. And as a part of that, in my training, I eventually was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with 101st Airborne. Now, this was I was on a Ranger battalion. Now, I was not a Ranger, but I was training right beside them. So basically, all the physical things that they needed to be able to do, I needed to be able to do. And that's pretty much how it went. For 2 years, I was there. Then I got out and I went back to school. And pretty much during that time, I was the gym rat. I was in the gym 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. The owner there pretty much just knew he could count on me to be there every day at a certain time. So he took his lunch break. He used me being there. He didn't have an assistant there at the time. He just said, Allan, watch the place, make sure nobody kills anybody. And so I went through, my whole college years lifting weights all the time, getting stronger, getting bigger. And by my mid to late 20s, I started playing some semi-pro volleyball. And then I was at a CPA firm. So every rec league they had, I was on that team. So pretty much all the way through into almost 30, I was doing something physical all the time. I was always active. I was always fit. Now, around age 30, that's when my career started to take over my life. With travel, bad food, stress, alcohol, my health and fitness declined, and I was packing on weight. And it came fast. A lot of people talk about it sneaking up. I wouldn't even say it snuck up on me, because quite literally in a handful of years, I managed to get myself into a pretty miserable situation. And I knew I needed to change, and I kept trying, but nothing was really sticking. And I couldn't do the things I did before, and it was getting worse and worse. Now, I got to a point probably sometime in my mid 40s where I began to think maybe it's just too late, and maybe I've lost this fight. And so this is just my path. This is just my future. This is where I'm going. But one morning I was on the phone with my daughter. I was in Malaysia. So it was my morning. It would have been her evening. And she asked me to come watch her do a CrossFit competition. She had gotten interested in CrossFit, become a level 1 instructor. She was going to do this competition. And then she asked me to come watch her. And that really got to me. After that call, I was thinking, now here I am, a spectator in my daughter's life, and I'm not a participant. And even now, I have a lot of feelings about that morning and what it meant to me. Words that I've used since to kind of talk about that day are words like commitment, self-respect, respect of others. But really, even those words don't quite capture how I felt in the moment and what happened after. Now, recently, as I've been thinking back on that, particularly for this episode, something that came to mind was the word FOMO, FOMO means the fear of missing out. And I was thinking to myself, in my mid 40s, was I afraid of what I was losing? And the answer was absolutely yes. Was I worried about my future and the future I was going to lose? And I think so. Yeah, I think that may have been a big part of it. And we talked about the fear last week, but this week I kind of want to talk about the other side of it, because that day after that call was the day that I changed. Everything changed for me. Okay. And so again, I don't want to get into the dark side of all of this, but obviously fear can be a very big driver. And for many of us, it works. But I want to talk to you today about not just fighting against the fear, not just running from the fear, which is a very strong motivator, but running toward something, giving yourself a future, something to think to, something to move to. So basically now you have a reason to do it and a reason and a place that you're going. So there's a purpose behind the movement. It's not just movement for fear's sake. It's purposeful and it matters. And so that's why today I want us to think about what you're trying to build. Because if you're in a particular place and you want to be somewhere else and there's a gap, we've got to build a bridge to get over that gap. And so today I want to talk about the other side of the bridge. And as we kind of get into what that's all about, I want to talk about it from 3 different angles, okay? So the first angle is about keeping things you love. The second angle will be keeping who you are. And the third is being there for more, okay? So in the keeping things you love, now, hopefully you have a lot more going on in your life than just your job, because if that's all you got, I can tell you that you're probably pretty miserable listening to this, and you know you need to change because you need more. Life was not meant to just be work, and sometimes we get ourselves a little too into it, and we let go of these other things. And I'm going to encourage you to think about the things that you love and things you enjoy. And one of the cores is things like hobbies and sports and activities. The thing about all of these is that they're adding excitement, relaxation, and joy. I told you the story of Glenn, my grandfather, and golf. He loved golf. Golf was his hobby, his sport, his activity. It was his social relationships. It was pretty much everything. So we want to keep those things. And I want you to think about what life is with you keeping those things and doing the things that you really love doing, even as you get older. Now, if we're going to do that, we have to focus on a few things. And that is, we have to maintain and improve our fitness. So even if you think, oh, I'm okay today, with aging and everything else, that won't always be the case. So improving your fitness as we go should be the criteria. You want to remain healthy. There are going to be things that are outside of our control, but in a general sense, if you're doing the things necessary to keep yourself healthy, you're moving in the right direction. And then, of course, we need to have the energy to do it. If you don't have the energy and you can't do the things because you're just overburdened when you do anything, you're not going to have the energy to do the things you love. And so we want to think about the things in our lives that we love the most, the things we do, the hobbies, the sports, the activities, and we want to start training ourselves to be better at those things, to retain those things, to keep the things we love. Okay, the next is who you are. And this one can feel a little bit more personal, and it should. Oddly enough, in this world, and again, it is what it is. I don't want to get political, but there's been this big social swing against masculinity, against what it means to be a man. I'm not going to say I'm sorry. This is how I feel. But I believe men should be providers. I believe men should be protectors. I believe that's my role in my family and with my wife. And I'm not saying that you have to be those things, but it's something I'm not willing to lose. It's who I am. I see myself as the provider and the protector, and I'm going to continue to be that person. I want my wife and I want my family to know that I'm willing and able to be there for them. What does that mean? Right now, I don't know, but I know that if my wife needed my help, I want to be the one that can help her. And when we talk about the future, my wife and I don't want those conversations to be about fear and worry. I want them to be about promise. I want her to feel comfortable that I'm healthy and strong and can do all the things in the future that define who I am today. And that's my job. That's what I need to do. That's where I am. So again, that might not be your definition of who you are, but you need to take some time to be thinking about who you are and who you intend to be. I do not intend to be an invalid. I do not intend to be someone who needs nursing care. I want to be, I say the joke, I want to be able to wipe my own ass when I'm 105. And that's the truth. I want to be the provider. I don't want to be provided for. in most circumstances. Now, it is a partnership with my wife, so there are times I need her, and then she's always there for me. That's her role. That's who she is. And so I think both of us doing what we feel is necessary to keep who we are alive is really, really important. And so as you start thinking about the people in your lives and who you are and what your responsibilities are and what they will remain for most, if not all, the rest of your life, that's the future you want. You want the future where you're strong and capable and doing the things that you need to be able to do to live the life that you're intending to live. Then the third bit here is being there for more. Now, a few years ago, I was on a strategy call with a man named Donnie, okay? And Donnie was in his mid-40s, and he was 125 pounds overweight. Now, he had two little girls. As I recall, one of them was 8 and the other was 3. And he already was showing some health conditions for being so much overweight that he was starting to have these health issues, and the prescription list was getting longer. And that was part of the reason we were on this strategy call, was what could he do? What was the plan so Donnie could get healthy and get fit? Now, Donnie decided he would take this challenge on himself. Okay. And but we had a plan. We talked it through. He knew what he needed to do. And he told me, he assured me, he said, I'm going to do these things. I'm committed to do these things. I felt like it was a good, valid call, good strategy call. I would have liked to have helped him, but that wasn't the path he wanted to take. So I set myself up to just follow up with Donnie after a while. And I did try to follow up with him a few times, and I never heard from him. Now, I don't know if something happened to Donnie, but what I do know is this, I was in my mid-40s and I was overweight, probably not quite 125 pounds overweight, but still significantly overweight and unhealthy. And yes, those health issues were creeping up. There was no medication, but it was coming. I was really close to it. And what I know is if I had not had that conversation with my daughter that morning, if I had not had those feelings and those thoughts, and I had not made that commitment, I would not have been walking her down the aisle when I was 51. I just can't help but question, is Donnie going to be there for his daughters? And if you hear this, Donnie, please reach out. You've got my email. I want to hear from you and know that you're okay. But I mean, this is what this is. What's going to come in the future? So that daughter that I walked down the aisle back when I was 51 had a son this August. You probably have heard, if you follow me on Facebook, you're on my Facebook, friends on Facebook, then you've probably seen some pictures of Cruz. And then our other daughter is pregnant, recent announcement, and she's due in October. There's a gender reveal coming up in a couple of weeks, so we don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Some discussion about it has to be a boy and it has to be a girl, whatever. Again, I just want them healthy. How's that? Anyway, so they're grandbabies. And I not only want to see them as grandbabies and little kids and crawl around on the floor with them, I want to see them grow up. I want to be there when they get married. I want to be there when they start families. Now, you could do a little bit of math. I'm 60. And obviously, I'm probably going to be in my 90s before they're getting married and having kids, but I intend to be there. So the things you want to think about here is things like your bucket list. Do you and your spouse and your family have things that you want to do? Those things that are in your future. Are there grandkids, graduations, weddings? All of those magic moments, those memories, will you capture them? Will you be there? Or are they going to slip away? So it's 3 layers that I want you to think of, 3 angles that I want you thinking about as you start thinking about what your future should be. And I don't want you to limit yourself and say, well, it's too late, because it's not. You need to have a clear direction. And so you want to think about what are the things that you need to keep because you love doing them. I love playing volleyball. I love being able to take long walks on the beach. I love being able to, enjoy myself physically doing things in the world and not handicapped and kept from. At some point, yeah, we might move somewhere where there's a golf course and I might swing a golf club again or a tennis racket, or I might even try that sport called pickleball. Never played it, but if it's similar to tennis, I'll give it a shot. It's a sport. I'll do it, okay? Because that's who I am, and I love doing those things. And you need to keep who you are, okay? This is, in my mind, about independence. It's about who you relate to and consider yourself, because, for many of us, particularly men, our identity has been defined, or, for most of our lives by the job that we have. Well, there's an understanding that at some point you may retire, and it's not because you're done, dead and done. It's just you've reached a retirement age. So the question then is, okay, who are you as a person? What do you reflect? Who are you to your spouse? Who are you to your children? Who do you need to be? That thing of, I want to be independent. I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be there if my wife needs me to do the things I need to do. And then the final bit, again, being there for more. We can't even map this stuff out to know exactly what's going to happen when. Okay, the grandbabies are coming, and I want to be there. The grandbabies will grow up, and I want to be there. They're going to have life experiences, graduations, weddings, babies, all of that, and I want to experience all of it. Okay? And I'm sure you can sit down in just a few minutes and map out a few things that will probably happen that you want to be there for, those magic moments. The doing the thing on the bucket list that you've talked about for years, but requires some physical capacity and still being alive to do. So when you take those three things, what you're building is a future. You're moving towards something, okay? So the other future we talked about last week is the future of do nothing. And this is the future of do the right things. Okay, it's not just doing something, it's doing the right things. So we want to do the right things to give ourselves the future that we need. I can't tell you on this call what that means, what that looks like, because I don't know the future that you're trying to build. But you do. If you sit down and do this exercise and really ask the questions with like no limitations, saying, okay, nothing's off the table. What would I really want? And then you're in a position to know this is where I am and this is where I need to be. And you've created a very good dynamic for yourself that now you're in a position to actually start planning to have the future that you want to have. So I hope you took some value from this episode. It was really about letting you know that so much is possible. I've said this many times, and I even said it on a podcast I was on this last week, but the human body is a magical, wonderful thing. If you give it what it needs, it can heal. If you give it what it wants, it can get better. You can literally improve yourself. If you can take one more breath, you can do something to be healthier. You just have to make the effort. And the best efforts are typically the ones that you're making in a direction that you want to be. And so you should never feel stuck. There really are no excuses. You're making a choice each and every day. Which of these two futures are you moving toward? And if you're not moving towards the promised future that we talked about today, you're probably moving towards the other one, which is not where you want to go. So I hope you took some value from this. And if you did, share it with someone. Share both episodes. I think there's a lot of value in, not in necessarily being scared, but recognizing that this is a fragile thing, but it's a wonderful thing. And we have all the opportunity in the world if we just take it. So I hope you took something from this, and I will see you next week. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we're going to ask the question, does this really matter to you? Until then, have a happy and healthy week.